Blog Talk Radio. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medlock Post radio show. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are those of the host and guests. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. Thank you for joining the show today, and here is your host, Richard G. Medlock.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and I salute you. I salute the Americans that are out there fighting for their country, that are willing to stand up and speak up and take action to save this wonderful Constitution and this wonderful land. I salute you today. Yes, this is Richard G. Medlock and the Medlock Post radio show. Today is September 26th, 2022. And we're all the way up to episode 57, and today the title is Climate Crisis and Daylight Saving Time. And you say, what do the two of them have to do in the same sentence? Well, we're going to get to that. But first, we need to hear from George Washington. He has some words of wisdom for us. He says, quote, "The arts of the enemy and the low, dirty tricks which they are daily practicing is an convincing proof that they are lost to all sense of virtue and honor, and that they will stick at nothing, however incompatible with truth and manliness, to carry their points." Unquote. So we learned from George Washington that human nature has not changed in politics. Politicians that want power, that are greedy, that do not want to be held accountable for their actions, as George Washington says, has lost all sense of virtue and honor, and they will stick at nothing, however incompatible with truth and manliness, to carry out their points. Well, folks, true words again from one of our founding fathers. And they should know these things. They studied it. The last Sunday in September, which was yesterday, is Gold Star Mothers and Families Day. So today, it should be done every day, we honor and thank the mothers and families of our heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. It is with the courage and strength of our military and the support of their families that our nation stands strong and our liberty is protected. And in another history moment, on September 24th, 1789, John Jay is nominated to be the first Chief Justice by President George Washington. So John Jay was the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And contrary to the false narrative peddled by the 1619 Project, Jay, along with many of the founders, was a proponent for the gradual manumission of slavery. In 1785, 4 years, and even before the Constitution came about, before his nomination, he founded the New York Society for the Manumission of Slaves, which worked to end abuse and advocated for the eventual freedom of black New Yorkers. Did you hear that, folks? Believing in the importance of education, they founded a school for black New Yorkers as well. You get that? 1619 Project just got blown out the window here. Although flawed, as many members still owned slaves, at least for a time, their efforts helped America become a more perfect union. Now, you can go to the New York Museum Society, New York, it's nyhistory.org, and look up African Free School Manu. It's MANU Mission, one word, Society, Manumission Society. And there's also information under Lock Society, LOCKESOT, or excuse me, Lock, LOCKESOCIETY.org, and type in early emancipation. So, folks, we know how to get the truth out and blow these anti-Americans out of the water. And that's what we're doing. They don't like it. They're being called out and proved to be going out there and speaking with a forked tongue. And we don't have a problem calling out people with forked tongues. Now, I'd like to play, it's a 1-minute ad that has come out about this student loan bailout. It's 1 minute. Let's listen to this.
I spend more time working on these cars than with my own family. I spend my days digging holes, cutting grass, and sweating.
This is job number 2 today. So my customers aren't the only ones drinking coffee.
I'm breaking my back out here for one reason. I want to pay off some other guy's debt.
Biden's plan to pay other people's college loans using my tax dollars is a great idea.
Biden's right. You should take my tax dollars to pay off your debts. My family will figure out how to get by with less. What's most important is we spare college graduates from any extra stress. Want to be a struggling artist? College is on me.
My kids don't need fancy things like school supplies or new shoes.
I work for you, theater major.
This shift is for you, business major. Go buy yourself that new car.
Enjoy your free ride. College is on me.
Tell Congress, stop Biden's bailout for rich kids.
That's right. Tell Congress to stop the bailout for rich kids. Now, we'll get into some of that, but in March of this year, that's right, March of this year, 2022, the Senate unanimously approved the Sunshine Protection Act. Did you know that? Which would end the practice of changing the clocks twice a year by November 2023. And it will bring peace to those Americans whose serotonin crashes when it gets dark in the middle of the afternoon for no good reason at all. Yeah, I'm being facetious here a little bit. Okay. It's in 1966, the original bill was passed to create daylight saving time. And it's saving time, not savings. Daylight saving time. It has been the object of many conversations and even contentions about the time change. The health challenges that have been greatly documented following the week after each adjustment, either forward or backward. Many states have passed bills to make daylight saving time permanent, and I think a couple have moved to make standard time regular. These are trigger laws waiting for the federal government. In this case, the House of Representatives to pass the bill passed in March by the Senate. March, folks. Here it is, end of September. The goal is to stop adjusting clocks twice a year. Okay? Now, there's a lot of debate whether we should stay on daylight saving time or go back to just standard time. Go back to the way the Earth operates, the way it was created, all right? All states but Hawaii and Arizona, except the Navajo Nation in Arizona, observe daylight savings time. Arizona and Hawaii don't. The territories of American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands also do not observe daylight saving time. On March 15th, the Senate passed by unanimous consent the Sunshine Protection Act of 1921, but it was passed this year. It was brought forth last year. If passed by the House and signed by the President, the bill would move forward by 1 hour what is currently considered standard time by the federal government beginning in November 2023. It would allow those states that had previously chosen to move to year-round daylight time, either through legislation or voter approval, to make that change. However, because the bill also repeals the section of federal law that changes standard time to daylight time from March to November, states would be forced to choose to operate either on standard or daylight year-round. States that currently remain on standard time year-round would be allowed to continue. The bill's fate in the House is uncertain, though matching legislation has been introduced, and the House Energy and Commerce Committee held a hearing on the issue in early March. So you see, something as simple as setting your clocks, our Congress can't handle. That simple. You either do it, make it simple. Okay, we're either going to go to standard time or daylight saving time year-round. Which is it? Now, there's a lot of feelings on both sides. I like standard time. I'm an early morning person. This is the first year going forward back in March that my body never adjusted. It didn't. I'm still battling it. This sounds crazy, doesn't it? But there are a lot of people that say, hey, one way or the other. It doesn't matter, just one way or the other. I like the way the Creator did it, and go back to that. But I'm an early morning person. All these people that want to play their time away in the afternoon, then go for it. I'm sorry that you haven't learned yet to play golf in the dark or schedule your time to play around in daylight. I'm sorry. And I'm not just going after golfers. There's a bunch of people out there, okay? So what does the alleged climate crisis and daylight savings time have to do with each other? That is the subject of our discussion today, folks. And bear with me and open your mind as I present scientific theories and facts to help you understand the relationship between the two. So let's start with the science. For years, it has been believed that electric bulbs emit light, but recent information has proved otherwise. Electric bulbs don't emit light, they suck dark. Thus, we call these bulbs dark suckers. Thomas Edison knew that the public would not buy into a dark sucker, but would buy a light bulb. You see what I mean? Okay. The dark sucker theory and the existence of dark suckers prove that dark has mass and is heavier than light. First, the basis of the dark sucker theory is that electric bulbs suck dark. For example, take the dark sucker in the room you're in. There is much less dark right next to it than there is elsewhere. The larger the dark sucker, the greater its capacity to suck dark. Dark suckers in the parking lot have a much greater capacity to suck dark than the ones in your room. Okay, because they're completely surrounded because of that. As with all things, dark suckers don't last forever. Once they are full of dark, they can no longer suck. This is proven by the dark spot on a full dark sucker. A candle is a primitive dark sucker. A new candle has a white wick. You can see that after the first use, the wick turns black, representing all the dark that has been sucked into it. If you put a pencil next to the wick of an operating candle, it will turn black. This is because it got in the way of the dark flowing into the candle. One of the disadvantages of these primitive dark suckers is their limited range. There are also portable dark suckers. In these, the bulbs can't handle all the dark by themselves and must be aided by dark storage unit. When the dark storage unit is full, it must be either emptied or replaced before the portable dark sucker can operate again. Dark has mass. When dark goes into a dark sucker, friction from the mass generates heat. Thus, it is not wise to touch an operating dark sucker. Candles present a special problem, as the mass must travel into a solid wick instead of through clear glass. This generates a great amount of heat, and therefore it's not wise to touch an operating candle. Also, dark is heavier than light. If you were to swim just below the surface of the lake, you would see a lot of light. If you were to slowly swim deeper and deeper, you would notice it getting darker and darker. When you get really deep, you would be in total darkness. This is because the heavier dark sinks to the bottom of the lake and the lighter light floats at the top. That is why it is called light. Finally, we must prove that dark is faster than light. If you were to stand in a lit room in front of a closet, a closed dark closet, and slowly open the closet door, you would see the light slowly enter the closet. But since dark is so fast, you would not be able to see the dark leave the closet. Think of the sun that lights and warms the earth. The sun has to be as big as it is because it is constantly sucking dark from all outer space around it. It is so hot because of the dark it absorbs on a constant basis. Next time you see an electric bulb, remember it is a dark sucker. With this new information in mind, what is the relationship between the alleged climate crisis and daylight saving time? We all know that the experts tell us we have an hour more of daylight every day when we are in daylight saving time. That's right, a whole extra hour of daylight. What has happened because of that extra hour of daylight is the dark suckers work overtime to absorb the dark in buildings and other places. This extra work creates more heat that is added to the atmosphere during the warmer months. And with the sun having to work an hour longer, it overheats and that extra heat comes to Earth that in turn affects the world's climate. In the winter months, the same thing applies. With 1 hour less daylight, the dark suckers work even harder to keep the dark away. Again, that extra heat generated by the dark suckers adds to the climate crisis. The bottom line conclusion is that any alleged climate crisis we have is created by man by trying to have more daylight than the creation process meant us to have. An Indian chief once said, quote, "Only a white man would believe if he cut a foot off the top of a blanket and sewed it to the bottom, you would have a longer blanket," unquote. Now, folks, you're probably sitting there laughing at this, and you should be. You should be laughing at this. These eco-Marxists want to come up with theories about climate crisis? Well, you know what? We can do the same thing and make it look just as stupid. That's what it's all about. Last week, remember I read the article in Italy, the 4 scientists that studied everything have come out and said what crisis? There is no evidence of a crisis. Temperatures are basically the same. Rainfall still pretty much the same. On and on. So I just had to come up with this and let you know how silly this climate crisis is. It's about control, folks, and coming after your money. Let's talk about some things going on in the world before we get into some other things. I had all kind of stuff going on here this morning. I think I'm good. All righty. I know where I am. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the economy. Yes, the economy. The 10-year and the 2-year rate and the 30-year rate continue to go up. The feds are raising rates when they should have been raising rates last year when commodity prices were going up, when inflation was going up. That's when they should have been raising rates to slow things down. But no, they've waited to the other side of the mountain to start doing anything as commodity prices are coming down. Although we still have inflation and it's going to be there for a while because of the Fed policies and the policies of the Biden administration. But he's doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Excuse me. It goes back to my contention that they knew they lost 4 years of introducing their totalitarian regime, and so they got slowed down when Hillary lost and Trump won. They knew they had to win, get rid of Trump, and win in 2020 and get the White House back and the Senate and the House. And they did it, and it's been debated whether it was legal or not legal, cheated, and all that stuff. However, they knew they won the election in 2020. They have fast-tracked everything because they knew in the 2022 election they could lose out again. And it looks like they are. 43 days from now, we're voting. Go register to vote, folks. That's what you do. Go register to vote. If you've never voted before, go register to vote. So there's still the Biden administration and the mainstream media, propaganda media, are still out there telling us all is well. Really? Well, not all well, and we all know that. We know that they're speaking with forked tongue. And we have the numbers, the evidence to prove it. So on the economy, there was a poll taken, and there were 5 items that were top of the list on people's minds come this election. 4 of these items favor the GOP, which I don't like. They're a bunch of weaklings. They compromise with evil, and then you get evil. There are 5 items: the economy, crime, inflation, the border, and abortion. Now, abortion was the lowest of those on the list. Now, where was climate crisis on that list? Do you happen to guess? Like it always is, at the very bottom of the list. Like 1% of the people say that's a concern. 1%. Those are the wackos. The economy was at 86% of the people said that's our biggest concern, along with inflation and crime, border, and then abortion. So the Democratic Marxists want to run, their big issue will be the Dobbs case. And it's not playing well so far. So they're trying everything they can. Matter of fact, one senator, a Democratic senator, last week proposed, now get this, I'd have to go back and look up her name. I think she's from the state of Washington. She proposed that all 128 states, 128 military bases be moved closer to abortion clinics. You know why? Because Biden has said, I want to make it legal on military bases to have an abortion. So she wants to move all military bases. We're talking insanity here, folks. Insanity. Continuing resolution, if there is not a 3-month budget passed, and I dare say budget, by the end of the week, which is the end of the quarter, end of the fiscal year for the federal government, which starts October 1st, the government will have to shut down. And they're throwing out all this stuff. They do it every time, and they wait till the last minute, the last day. Oh, here it is. Let's pass it. We've got to pass it or we're going to shut down. Well, let it shut down, folks. But see, the Democratic Marxists don't want it to shut down because it would be less than 40 days to the election, and then everybody would blame them for the shutdown. But they throw in all this garbage, all this money to take care of their pet peeves, and Republicans do too. And then at the last minute, everybody's scared to death, and they're all going to vote for it. And don't buy this garbage from Republicans that say, oh, we might as well pass it because then we're going to have control after that, and come first of the year, we can fix everything. Yeah, some of that stuff is not fixable. Okay. What's going on out there in the world? You probably thought, well, you got the Russian-Ukraine war, stuff like that, Iran, all that stuff. However, 3 weeks ago, a year ago, Chile elected a new president. Well, it didn't take him long. He presented a new constitution for the country of Chile. Well, it was a total, right down the line, socialist constitution. Gave him all power. And guess what? They had an election by the people, and all 16 areas or districts or states, whatever they call it, I can't remember, voted overwhelmingly no to that constitution. They put the president in his place. In Chile, we the people went to the poll and said, we're none of this. We don't want anything to do with socialism. And that rocked a lot of people. In the United Kingdom, they elected Liz Truss, their new prime minister, and she has vowed to be like Margaret Thatcher, which is a good thing. That's funny that years ago she was an anti-Thatcher person. But anyway, so when Russia's, of course, she took office Monday and the Queen died on Thursday, so she's had to go through all of that, kind of take a little bit of her limelight or positioning away. And so when Russia's sitting here threatening to turn off oil and gas to Europe, she went out and she and the parliament said, okay, no more regulations on fracking. Go frack, folks. Get it going. Let's create our own oil. Let's create our own energy. And it's also going to be interesting to see how many countries are going to go back and start building nuclear power plants. So that's what we should have been doing in the United States for the last 35 years, instead of the government shutting them down, not giving permits. Talking about clean energy. Oh, but if it blows up, it's going to kill a lot of people. There's only been two things. One was a leak and the other one was a blow up in Chernobyl, and that was probably caused by the Russians to start with. All right. And then this weekend, yesterday, in Italy, Giorgia Meloni was elected as president or prime minister of Italy, right-wing candidate. If you sit there and listen to her talk, she talks about freedom of the people, freedom to do what you want to do, freedom to go anywhere you want to go, freedom to build whatever you want to build. Does that sound familiar? Sounds like America, doesn't it? She's in charge now. And Italy's gone through some tough times over the last few years, financially and economically. Well, here comes a free market president. We're going to lower taxes. We're going to help the economy. We're going to help the people do it on their own. Freedom. Now, Liz Truss last week came out, and she in Parliament lowered taxes in the United Kingdom, to everybody's surprise. Europe went nuts. They went nuts. Well, you can't do that. Well, they did it. Well, the pound is taking a beating. It actually should be going up. It's going to make the pound stronger. See, they didn't go on the EU currency. They never did. And that's why they were able to break away from the European Union. So they're going to become the United Kingdom again. And they're going to try to do things right. You see what's happening? People around the world are waking up to this globalism. They don't want it. They don't want to be a slave to anybody. And it's happening. So let's not let it happen in the United States of America. We the people have the power. We the people control who we elect. You do what we say or we vote you out. The elected officials are doing everything they can not to get elected out now. Some of these crazy bills they're talking about. All right, those are side notes. I wouldn't even end my typed script. But these are things we need to look at. Now, this continuing resolution, this really puts Joe Manchin from West Virginia back in the spotlight again. I mean, he's stuck in the middle here. Remember, the Democratic Marxist leadership promised him that if he voted for the Inflation Reduction Act, which he did not like, that they would give him permits in West Virginia to do oil drilling and the pipeline and stuff like that. Well, so far, they keep voting it down. Speaking of forked tongues, they lied to their own key senator. So there's some interesting play there come this continuing resolution. However, Joe Manchin is Joe Manchin. He talks big, and he'll end up voting for it. He will get something he wants, whether it's those permits or something else. Now, he didn't vote for Build Back Better the first time, but he did vote for it the second time. A lot of things to watch between now and November 8th. Have you noticed the political ads picking up on television? Yeah. That's why we have all these other things. When we watch our local channels, there's all these ads. When we watch everything else, they're not there, thank goodness. Thomas Huxley said, quote, "Learn what is true in order to do what is right." It kind of goes back to what George Washington said, right? He said, "All sense of virtue and honor is lost, and they will stick at nothing, however incompatible with truth and manliness to carry out their points." Okay. Buddha says, quote, "Three things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth," unquote. And I think we're seeing these things come out, folks. The truth is coming out. The truth has come out about the 1619 Project. The truth has come out about Howard Zinn's book, History of the United States. He wrote, it came out in 1980, where he just turned everything upside down in America and make us look like the worst country on earth, and it's probably still in schools. All right, we're going to start this next section out by presenting a math equation to everyone to find the answer. Some mathematicians out there will probably recognize this equation right away and think they know the answer. Don't be so quick to answer. You might not get the right one. Okay, you ready? Here's the formula. 2 plus 2 equals question mark. 2 plus 2 equals what? I know what your minds are saying right now, but hold on to that. 50 plus years ago, I was sitting in a philosophy class at Arizona State University. This was about 2 or 3 weeks into the semester. There were approximately 65 or so students in the class, and we had assigned seating. I was about halfway back in the aisle, and in the aisle next to me was Ben, not his real name. And I was in the middle. I was almost in the middle of the classroom. That's where I was. He was struggling with the class, and Ben did not have a lot of self-confidence and was somewhat naive. but I liked Ben. He was a nice guy. He was a freshman. All right. And I took this class just to fill in a blank. That's all I did. Please note here that the professor and I had already had ideological conflicts. Can you believe that? I would have a conflict with a philosopher? Yes, you'll see. You'll see. On this one day, the professor was discussing one of Plato's theories, and that's what we were studying, was Plato's book. And remember that Plato is highly regarded as the father of communism. The theory to discuss was that, and this was in Plato's Republic, the theory to discuss was that if a group of people lived in a cave, that the majority of people would decide what was truth or right or wrong. Right? Plato's thing, majority makes all decisions. To prove this one theory, he wanted to send a student out to the hall while the class was prepped for the experiment. He called on Ben to leave the classroom. Ben looked at me like, what the heck? I just said, go on. The professor had already figured out Ben, his weaknesses, and had been picking on him already before today's class. Ben went outside and closed the door. The professor then explained how he was going to prove the majority rules and decides what is truth. He wrote on the chalkboard 2 + 2 = ? When Ben was to come back in, the professor was going to ask him to come up and write the answer. Ben came in and wrote the answer as 4. However, we had been instructed to say that the answer was 5, and Ben was wrong. The professor asked the class if Ben had put down the right answer. Most students said no, that the correct answer was 5. I could tell most students were not comfortable with this situation. Excuse me. Ben feebly tried to fight back, but was shut down by the professor and a couple of students supporting the falsehood of 5 being the correct answer. Ben was getting frustrated and was overwhelmed by the moment. I stood up and I challenged everyone that the true and correct answer was 4, and this was a sick trick to pull on Ben, much less any other student. Well, what happened, folks? All the other students stood up for Ben and the number 4. The professor was beside himself, but eventually relented back to the truth. The next day, I was summoned to the professor's office. Yeah, shock, right? He very bluntly gave me 2 choices. 1, school was still in the early class drop period, or 2, if I stayed in class, he would fail me no matter what. I put conditions on number 1. I fought back. I would follow what went on in his class, and if anything went amiss or I heard of him picking on Ben, I would file a complaint with the admissions and push for him to be removed. He agreed to that. And I'm sure I said some other things about his method of teaching. Okay. In George Orwell's novel 1984, he uses 2 + 2 = 5 as well. The phrase 2 + 2 = 5 is a slogan used in many different forms of media, but more specifically in George Orwell's 1984 as an example of an obviously false dogma one may be required to believe. Did you see that? How many times are you asked to believe a false dogma or false media report? Similar to other obviously false slogans by the party in the novel. Remember, you had the party in the novel 1984. It is contrasted with the phrase 2 plus 2 makes 4, the obvious by definition, but politically inexpedient truth. Orwell's protagonist, Winston Smith, uses the phrase to wonder if the state might declare 2 plus 2 equals 5 as a fact. He ponders whether, if everybody believes it, does that make it true? Basically, he is saying that as long as the party, which has brainwashed all the citizens, has the power to control the truth, the public will never be free. Once people have the freedom to know the truth as they see it, to say that 2 plus 2 equals 4 instead of 2 plus 2 equal 5, then other freedoms will follow. Do you understand the message of this story? Let's look at what they've done to the American public education system. I did 3 episodes on this. Teaching false dogmas. Here's the case. Let's go back. I didn't do this, did I? On September 24th, 1981, Sandra Day O'Connor is the first woman appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court. I remember that day. It was a beautiful day, wonderful day. She's a nice lady. Now, did I agree with all her decisions? No. But she still has her place in history. Now, after O'Connor's retirement, she founded iCivics. The I is little I, and then the C in civics is uppercase. An organization meant to bring civics education to the forefront of learning and make it engaging. Right? Sadly, what began with good intentions has been corrupted by the radical left. According to the current executive director, Louise Dubé, D-U-B-E, America is a nation plagued by institutional systemic racism, and educators must commit themselves to unveiling it. You see that? They took something beautiful that Sandra Day O'Connor created to help America and help its youth to learn the truth, and the radical left, the Marxists, corrupted it and created institutional systemic racism, which they today still cannot explain. Going back to my story. Now, this thing that happened in class at Arizona State University is a true story. That really, I didn't make that up. But it works into what I'm trying to prove here. The same with George Orwell in his novel 1984. And if you've never read it, you need to read it. I'm telling you guys, you need to read this, you need to read that. You need to read it and study it. Just like the Constitution, the Bible, and the history of the Founding Fathers, etc. Once people have the freedom to know the truth, to say 2 plus 2 equals 4, then other freedoms will follow. Other freedoms will follow. Because you're standing up for one freedom, then you're going to stand up for another freedom. You're going to stand up for this right. You're going to stand up for that right that are God-given. And next thing you know, you've got a whole classroom of people standing up saying, no, the answer is 4, not 5. The answer is capitalism, not socialism and Marxism. The answer is freedom, not slavery. This is our message. And the Founding Fathers warned us of all of these things. Writer Charles F. Brown wrote, we can't all be Washingtons, but we can all be patriots. We don't have to be in the military to fight for America. The fight is within our borders right now. It is here. It's in our streets. It's in our businesses. It's in our churches. Here's the fight. And we all need to be patriots. Writer Marilyn Voss Savant wrote this, quote, "What is the essence of America? Finding and maintaining that perfect, delicate balance between freedom to and freedom from," unquote. Do you understand that? The delicate balance between freedom to and freedom from. There's a big difference there, folks. As Georgia Maloney in Italy was saying the other day, freedom to go work where you want, go to school where you want, to do what you want, to live where you want, to travel where you want, versus you have freedom from government totalitarianism. So you see, right now we have a government that is granting privilege to those that bow to them. That's why we have a dual justice system in America today. Do you want freedom from persecution for doing nothing wrong? They're coming after us. This is where we are. Other countries are waking up to this now. They're looking at our example from our history, and they're trying to create it in their lands. And they're right to do that. They're awfully right to do that. And you watch this in the European Union. This is going to start catching on. You watch Germany. They're already taking steps. Russia cut off their oil and gas, fine. They went over and nationalized the Russian factories, the Russian refineries. Sorry about that, blank. They said, hey, you're not going to ship any oil here, then you don't need these refineries. They're ours now. So if Russia comes back, they're probably going to have to buy their refineries from Germany. Huh? This is standing up and speaking up and taking action. That's what this is about. It's simple terms, folks. It's simple. You have truth or you have falsehoods. Truth or lies. Discover your truth. Are you going to sit there and be told by the government that 2 + 2 = 5? No matter what it is, apply that to the climate crisis. They have been telling us this for decades now, since the 60s. Nothing has happened. None of the 40+ predictions about the seas taking over and big cities flooding and ice age and America's going to turn into a desert, none of that's come true. But that's the false dogma that they pour out there. The other false dogma is that abortion is a right, that it is your right as a woman to kill that baby inside you. That's false dogma. I'll probably get attacked here and cyber attacked here in a few minutes. Folks, one last quote. Kind of a little bit off the subject, but still there because I can tie it back in. This is from Brigham Young. So, quote, He who takes offense when no offense was intended is a fool. And he who takes offense when offense was intended is a greater fool, unquote. This goes back to the balance between freedom to and freedom from. I have the freedom not to be offended. I want to be free from being offended. Oh, don't offend me, please. Please, don't throw me in the briar patch. You see the difference? That's what we're talking about here. And I'm just telling you, like I started, I salute the Americans that are standing up. You're standing up. You're doing things that work. Let's let me find this one. Yeah, let me play this before we leave today.
Oh, I'm a good old American, now that's just what I am. And for the liberal nation, I do not give a damn. Don't want to rise against her, but I'll gather up my guns. My freedom won't be taken, I'll fight 'em till I've won. I hate a liberal nation and everything they do. I hate the social programs and stimulus bill too. I hate the federal government stripping away our rights. I hate all socialism, time for states to fight. I was born here in this nation, lived here all my life. I love my founding fathers and share their view of rights. Working men and women rather die poor and free, 'cause we know what freedom stands for, no Denny states for me. No universal health care or fairness doctrine touts. We like free market systems, to hell with these bailouts. For all the politicians who think revolt won't brew, if you take away my freedom, my votes won't be for you. No longer will I whisper, this land should be free. I'll voice my opinions, my kids will sure thank me. I don't want no pardons for what I say and am. Obama won't remake me, and I do not give a damn. Oh, I'm a good old American, now that's just what I am. And for a liberal nation, I do not give a damn. Don't want to rise against her, but I'll gather up my guns. My freedom won't be taken, I'll fight 'em till I've won. And I don't want any pardon for what I say and am.
Good old American, folks, that's who we are. Be a good old American, because America is worth fighting for. And that, folks, is our show today. And so let's go out with just a little bit of music and rock steady here. Yeah, rock steady, folks. Be a rock in your family, in your neighborhood, in your business. Be a rock in America. We need more rocks, folks. Great Americans. Become that patriot. Stand up for freedom. And that, folks, is the Medlock Post radio show for today. May God bless America, and may God bless you.